Okay, we're going to get started here shortly. I just want to remind everyone that if you'd like to speak during the call to the public, and we'd love to hear from you during that time, I will need a little blue form from out front and give that to Lisa, and then we'll be able to call you up during that part of the agenda. Everybody in? We're good? Okay. It is 6:31 p.m. on February 12th, 2020, and I'll call this meeting to order. Lisa, will you please call the roll?
Anna Marie Noor.
Present.
Ben Owens.
Present.
Tori Anderson.
Present.
Joshua Judd.
Present.
Patty Craig.
Present.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll now go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are now on item 1D, adoption of the agenda. Board?
President Noor, I would like to pull 7I from consent and move that to action, please. Other than that, I make a motion to adopt.
I'll second that, pulling 7I from consent and moving that to the top of the action items.
I have a motion and a second. Lisa?
Patty Craig.
Aye.
Joshua Judd.
Aye.
Tori Anderson.
Aye.
Ben Owens.
Aye.
Anna Marie Noor.
Aye. By your vote of 5-0, you have approved the agenda as written, moving 7I to the first item for action items. We are now on call to the public, but I do not have any cards from you today. So we'll move on to item 3, the superintendent's report. Dr. Lopman, take it away.
Thank you, President Noor. On January 25th, students from Maricopa Wells and Desert Wind Middle School competed at the Arizona Future Cities competition. We are proud to announce that Maricopa Wells' Salt Lake City team placed first in the competition, earning them an all-expenses-paid trip to Washington, D.C. I know. That's a total. That competition is actually, the finals are this weekend, the 14th through the 19th. Overall, Maricopa Wells and Desert Wind Middle Schools earned a total of 19 awards for projects that charted a water supply system for a city of the future. This is the third year in a row that MUSD will be represented in the national competition. And this is the knowing nods of future city parents, right? Great job to all who competed, and stay tuned. We're thrilled to report this year's job fair took place on January 25th, was very successful, with more than 90 people out to meet our team and see what MUSD has to offer. There were 9 letters of intent issued for certified teachers, which is more than any prior year. Although we are still very early in the hiring season, this was a great event, and I would like to thank the Human Resources Department and the principals for all you did to make the day successful. Great news! The Maricopa High School Theater Company recently competed in the Central Arizona Festival of Theater. 13 students qualified for the national competition in June. Areas of qualification include solo musicals, duet scenes in musicals, monologues, stage management, and costume design. Congratulations on such an accomplishment. We'll be rooting for you in June. Last week, Saddleback Elementary School hosted a multicultural affair for students and families. The Ak-Chin Coyote Dancers kicked off with a special performance, and then students and families received a passport to travel to different countries. Classrooms and designated areas received a proper makeover and debuted as countries like France and the Philippines and Romania, and invited families in to participate in activities to learn about the culture and even enjoy some local cuisine. Michelle Terry and I were there, and it was quite a night. On February 7th, cadets McKenna Decker and Alexis Esparza joined retired Lieutenant Colonel Gene Case of the United States Air Force on an incentive flight from Chandler to Casa Grande. The incentive flight is a result of the partnership between the United States Air Force and the Civil Air Patrol to provide exposure to cadets who may be interested in pursuing careers as pilots. A special congratulations to Cadet Decker, who was selected as the MHS, it's a lot of letters, MHS Air Force Junior ROTC Operations Commander, putting her third in command of more than 300 cadets. Now, that's impressive. On Saturday, teachers, administrators, and governing board members gathered to honor the newest National Board Certified Teachers at the Arizona K-12 Center's 11th Annual Celebration of Accomplished Teaching. MUSD currently has 23 National Board Certified Teachers. National Board Certification was designed to develop, retain, and recognize accomplished teachers and generate ongoing improvement in schools nationwide. Thank you to everyone who attended and supported our newest National Board Certified Teachers. Last week, MUSD teachers participated in a Kagan Cooperative Learning Structures workshop. Participants learned ways to use Kagan structures as a part of every lesson to create greater engagement and deeper understanding of content, to improve retention, and to inspire a greater liking for content. We were honored to have Dr. Duvall and Dr. Kagan himself lead our workshops. Kagan structures are one of the first things I look for when I visit schools, BT dubs. So I can't wait to see this in action in our classrooms. Board members, this is so exciting. On Monday, the Boys and Girls Club of Casa Grande Valley announced its partnership with the Maricopa Unified School District to bring additional after-school opportunities for students in our community. The program will launch at Santa Cruz Elementary School beginning in July 2020 and provide tons of fun and educational activities for kids after school. There's a lot of work involved to ensure a project like this goes smoothly, and I would especially like to thank the Boys and Girls Club of Casa Grande Valley's director, that's Mr. Matt Lemberg, and Principal Dr. Lorraine Conley for your collaboration and drive that create meaningful opportunities for kids. So stay tuned and we'll share more details in the months to come. And I know that has been in the works for like 10 years. And it's finally here. We're going to blink and it's finally here. I've got some upcoming events. On Thursday, March 12th, the Maricopa Unified School District is hosting an Empowering Families Carnival from 5 to 7 at Maricopa High School. Schools will showcase their own unique programs and opportunities for students. There will also be games, music, activities, and of course, food trucks, which they had me at food truck. So you can count me in, and I hope we see everyone there. And that's it for my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Lopman. We will now move on to item 4, the governing board member reports. And I'd like to start and recognize Councilmember Henry Wade for being in the audience. Thank you for being here continually and supporting the district. And then just a couple things to report on. I got to attend the Future Cities competition, and I started taking pictures of the awards that our middle schools were receiving, and then my phone album filled up because there were so many. At every award, it seemed, it was either Wells or Wins or both. And the kids just did an amazing job. It was great watching them compete against the different schools. And just want to thank the teachers who I know put in so much extra time to make that program so successful. So, and the parents, of course, because parents help as well. And then I was able to attend the community leaders dinner at the district office, and I think that's a great tradition that we're starting, to bring the leaders of the community together to talk about things we can work on and to get input from them is really what Dr. Lopman did, to get input from them on what we can do within the district and within the community to make Maricopa a better place to live and be educated. So I think it was very valuable, and thank you for doing that. Also able to attend the Pima Butte Multicultural Night, and that, I believe, is the first time they've done that. As a Pima Butte parent for several years, I hadn't seen one of those, and it was really amazing to see all of the kids. They worked on projects and brought forth different countries, and there was food samples from the different countries, and the parents participated. And then the Ak-Chin did a special dance presentation of their native dance, and that was really amazing to see. And I was really glad that they could participate in that event as well. And then I got to attend an MHS boys soccer game, my first one this season. And it was great to see them playing hard, and they also honored the Desert Wind soccer team for winning the championship. So it was great for them to join forces, the middle school and the high school. And with that, I will yield my time to Vice President Owens.
All right, thank you, President Noor. I think the only thing that I've got for right now is yesterday morning, I attended the MHS Awards ceremony for academics, and just a big shout out to Principal Winter and his staff. I thought that went off.
I'm sure.
It was very, very well organized. It was great to see the one whole section on the lower section on the right-hand side there was all filled with students front to back, not a seat open in there. So that was really, really great to see. So we got a lot of really driven kids, and so I'm excited where we're going. That's all I've got.
Good. Thank you. Mrs. Anderson?
Okay, here we go. We ready? So I have, the last couple weeks have been pretty adventurous for me. I started out going to Pima Butte, loved looking at our schools and seeing kind of what we do here at the dais is actually trickling down. And it was very rewarding to see teachers that have been here for 10 years plus. And that's really where we're going to make a difference in our academics. So that was a great tour. From there, I went to Pima County, and we did a board operating leadership training with the School Board Association. So it was school board members from Pima County, and that was very well attended, but it's always good for me to brush up on the rules and regulations which we have to follow up here on the dais. They're a little different than city code, and so it's just nice to get brushed up. I learned a few things, which I'll share out through Dr. Lopman. And then I was on a plane to DC, and I had the amazing opportunity to attend a national equity conference. Several of those sessions were incredible, but also how we can use our Title IV funds to help with the equity in the classroom and the training. So that was a good part of it. I did send the whole time I'm there, I'm sending Dr. Lopman all of the presentations. So she's got all that. She'll share it out to the board, some really good information on how we can construct our policies so that we can make sure we're operating on a board level, looking at the equity of our staff and of our students. So that was amazing. And then the next couple days we spent on the Hill. So we went to the Capitol on Tuesday, which was the day that it was also the State of the Union, State of the Union address. So security was extremely tight, so we couldn't use the tunnels underneath. We had to walk all the way around and go back and forth. But it was an amazing opportunity. Board members, I did put on each of your chairs what we talked about with each one of our senators, our Congress, and our representatives, and we did get to see every single one of them. So it was great that we were able to share impact aid, which we would like to see a consistent stream of that, so when the government shuts down, our kiddos can still have breakfast. So that was a big part of it. And then rural broadband connectivity, which is an interesting topic that across the nation is an issue. And we talked about some satellite things that are coming down the pike to kind of get away from fiber, so that was interesting. And then the vaping lawsuit, which we have against Juul. And there's information on that on our Arizona School Board Association website, but we are part of a national, specifically our state, has a class action lawsuit against Juul because they specifically targeted middle school students. And I've got that data if you would like to see that, so that was always exciting. And of course, the Higher Education Act, which helps teachers, because we know there's a teacher shortage. And so we talked a lot to our senators about how that needs to be reauthorized, but also there needs to be incentive and some loan forgiveness. and some consistency in those rules, because the application for loan forgiveness for teachers is very cumbersome, and one year they might qualify and then the next year the school doesn't qualify. So we asked for some consistency in that, and so that just because of the teacher shortage and keeping teachers in the classroom. So that was a big part of it. And then the other one was, of course, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is our funding from the federal level, that they're supposed to do it at 40%. Our school just currently gets about 16%. So there is a couple of bills coming down the pike. I know Maria Rossetti's on top of it as well. But there are a couple bills coming down through the federal level that hopefully within the next few years that will be funded for at the full 40%. So it was nice to see the things that we've been talking about at the federal level for the last 5-6 years are starting to come around. So yeah, little happy dance there. But they were very open to suggestions, and I look forward to seeing them when they, obviously on our own turf, invited several of them to come see our district, so we'll see if that comes out. But that was a big, an amazing opportunity for me to share information from our district with other states across the nation, and kind of what works, what doesn't work, and where did you put your funding, where does that come from? So it was a great sharing and listening tour as well. And like I said, I sent all that information, board members, to Dr. Lopman so she can share that out. And then real quick, then I was back to Flagstaff for another board operating leadership training. And then on Monday, and then I went to Saddleback, which was Dr. Hassan, was great. Love walking through the halls, and you walk into a classroom and the kids they just continue their work. There's no disruption, it's just continuous. It was really nice to see, and it was really great to see teachers that had my boys, they're still teaching. And I've seen a difference in our senior year this year, our seniors. Those kids started school as kindergartners here in MUSD, and it's proven that if we raise them and grow them and keep them, they achieve off the charts. So it was just really great to see. And then I wanted to do a shout out to our National Board teachers. I was able to go to that celebration on Saturday, which was great. It's tough. I'm proud of them. And then on Monday, February 17th, is our Advocacy Day at the Arizona Capitol. So, and that is open to everybody. It's obviously there's no school, so everybody is welcome, but it's our education advocacy. And so we have opportunity to meet with our local representatives and talk about pushing education forward for our public schools. So that's been my couple weeks. It's been amazing, and I'm happy to be home. So thank you.
Thank you. We're glad you could fit our meeting into your busy schedule. That's pretty impressive.
Once in a while.
Mr. Judd.
Thank you, President Moore. And I don't want to follow Tori anymore.
I know, sorry.
And thank you for all you do, Board Member Anderson. For the regionals for future cities, I look forward to it. I'm almost sad now that we're not going back, but it's an amazing day. It's about 8 hours, and you get to see these boards from all over the area, not just Arizona. Sometimes I think it's regional, so you have from California, you have these buses come in. It's amazing. The kids do a great job with it. But it's always, we kind of walk around and we kid in a very proud way that these aren't even in the ballpark with Maricopa. So we're not surprised when we get up there and we just dominate that competition. And it's always a great thing for the city. It's a great thing for our school system. It's really become a hallmark kind of what we do, specifically with the blended program. So again, a great thank you to all the teachers that really surrender a ton of additional time, specifically with that project. So I just wanted to say a personal thank you. In addition, I also attended with Dr. Lopman the announcement of services for the Boys and Girls Club starting at Santa Cruz on Monday night. And thank you for Mayor Price for attending that event as well. For those of you that aren't aware, in maybe either back east or from larger cities, you're used to seeing the Boys and Girls Club in large buildings. detached from the school and they operate independently. This is starting on a much, much smaller scale, but it's going to be operating directly out of our schools. So it's actually a great thing, especially for the kids currently attending Santa Cruz. They get to go right from the end of school directly into the hands of the staff of Boys and Girls Club. So it's an exciting thing to have for the district. But that's all I have. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Mr. Judd. Member Cotray?
Thank you. So I haven't really been able to do that much. Work has been kind of crazy, but I did want to give a shout out and a thank you to our MHS band who came out to the Our Lady of Grace Parish Festival Saturday morning and played, and then to a few of our DECA members who volunteered their time to stand in a parking lot and direct parking and make sure that all the patrons were safe. So a huge shout out, because we couldn't have made it happen without their help. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I forgot to add during my report that I was also able to attend the Principals List Luncheon at Desert Winds. Thank you, Principal Alvarado, for putting that together. It was a great opportunity to honor those kids who received straight A's all semester, which is really fantastic in middle school and not easy to accomplish. And I think that's a new recognition that's been started at Desert Wind. I want to thank you for recognizing those students. Okay, we will now move on to item 5, our information items. A, results of Maricopa Swim's Safe in the Water program. Mr. Nathan.
President Nord, tonight we have a special guest from the city of Maricopa. Nathan Olliott is the city's Community Services Director, and he is here to share highlights from our partnership in the Maricopa Swims Safe in the Water program that we piloted in the fall. As you may remember, the city of Maricopa and Global Water collaborated to provide a water safety program to first graders at Maricopa Elementary and Butterfield Elementary. Welcome, Mr. Olliott. Tell us how it went.
Thank you, and good evening, honorable board members, and to our wonderful superintendent and collaborative superintendent, and to all our friends and neighbors. Again, my name is Nathan Olliott. I am a parent of 3 MUSD students. I'm proud to be so. They're at Desert Wind and then 2 at Saddleback. So thank you for your leadership there. We've moved to the city about 7 or 8 months ago, so we got to start school here. So doing a great job. The kids love it, and they're really getting engaged. So it's probably been 15 months since Superintendent Lopman and Wade Watson and myself sat down to talk about ways we can partner as a city and as a school district. And one of those projects, along with others, but one of those projects was this idea of bringing swim lessons back into school curriculum. And that takes a lot of things, right? There's limits on budgets, there's limits on time, certainly, and there's also an overworked group of people at times in our schools. So it took a lot of things to go right, and it's really quite amazing how that happened over the last year. So, but where that all started with was a superintendent and the director of curriculum saying, yeah, let's take a look at it, let's see if we can do it. It happened a lot faster because right after I had that kind of buy-in from our school district, I was able to go to John Corwin and Beth Huerta from Global Water and say, well, we've got this idea and we've got some buy-in from our school district. What we need now is a little bit of cash, you know, and they had been wanting to do something in the community already, and the partnership here just makes a lot of sense. So. We did complete our pilot program. It's been a little while now, but we have our outcomes and surveys done, and we want to share that with you and talk about the next steps going forward with this program. So let's see if I can click it right. I did it. All right, so Safe in the Water, it's a program designed, I don't want to read to you too much, but it's a program to remove barriers that prevent children from getting water safety lessons, right? A number of those barriers could be the amount of time, transportation, money, and frankly, just parents caring enough to do it, right? And sometimes it's one of those things you get to be 7 years old and wait, my kid can't tie his shoe and they can't swim, and you don't mean to, but you're there, right? So the goal is to make sure that every kid has a swim lesson by 3rd grade, because that's about that time where the peer pressure kicks in, and maybe, you know, all my friends can swim, but I can't, but I don't want to, I'm embarrassed to go take lessons at this point. So we felt like that's another barrier we need to remove. But what worked when we met with 2 wonderful principals and their PE coaches, PE staff at Butterfield and MES, what sounded like made a lot of sense was first graders. They've had a year of school already, so they can get on a bus and maintain some calm and some order and take the short trip over to Copper Sky. So we started with the first graders from Butterfield and MES, and we came up with a 4-week program which essentially functioned as 4 field trips, right? And so district knows how to do field trips, right? We do it all the time. And then we know how to do swim lessons. We do it all the time. So it made sense. And then again, the goal is to ensure that every Maricopa child is assessed and receives a free swim lesson by 3rd grade. Okay, so the primary goal, so if we don't do anything else with this program or with these 4 weeks, is that if a kid fell in the water or jumped in the water, you know, got brave all of a sudden, that they'd be able to get back to the wall safely, right? Really just have that chance to survive. So that's number one. We wanted to accomplish that with as many kids as possible. And what we found out in our pre-survey is the parents felt like, hey, if my child fell in the water, 50% of them didn't think they'd have a chance to survive if they fell in. So that peace of mind just wasn't there. And on the first day, as you can see there, 160 of the 198 were afraid to even jump in. Overcoming fear of water is a big reason why kids don't get in the water and learn. And then only 15 of the 198 had some formal swim lesson before the program. We hope that that's better at some of the other schools, but that's kind of the reality we're in right now. As the hustle and bustle, it's hard to get kids down sometimes. And then the secondary goals, increasing confidence and reducing the fear of water, and then giving the parents that peace of mind that, hey, if it did happen, my kid's got a shot, you know, and I think that's the best you can hope for if the unthinkable happens. And, you know, it's hard to think that it can still happen, but it does. And then to show the value of the program as it relates to using school time to do it. And so what we found after 4 weeks and surveying and then assessing the kids, 100 out of the 198 kids who participated were able to come back to the wall after they jumped in water over their heads. So pretty good numbers when you think about only 60 of them were even willing to get in the water at the start. So we're excited about that outcome. 100% of the parents said they saw their child's confidence increase, and 100% said that they thought it was a great use of school time, especially as efficiently as we were able to execute it. And then 89%, up from 50%, now thought their kids had a chance to survive. So to me, that's some powerful stuff. So what's next? We have graciously got funding from Global Waters so that we can now reach out to 3 more schools in the spring, and then add, hopefully as we go forward into the next school year, add the 3 schools who weren't included, or the one other school, which is Santa Cruz, this year. We started with the closest. We figured if we can do the closest, then maybe we can keep moving out. But obviously time is important, so we had to do that well first. So our goal is by the end of next year that all 6 MUSD schools would be engaged, and all 6 schools' first graders would have those lessons. And then after that, reach out even further into the charter school system to make sure that this is a part of our community's fabric. So as you can see, that's the plan there. Our hope too is that this will be considered as a part of curriculum and be something that again is just a given every year. It's not something we have to work out. We just plan it, and we already come to the table knowing we're going to do it, so then it's just about figuring out logistics. So I'll take questions at the end, actually. I first wanted to say thank you to all the people involved, obviously Dr. Lopman, Wade Watson, our transportation. The school provided transportation. We paid for it. Global Water paid for it, but the school provided it and got the kids there safe back and forth in the middle of a school day. And then principals Jennifer Robinson and Janelle Hildick, the PE teachers Paul Kriegbaum and Steve Sorensen, and some of the most amazing names that I'm going to do my best on from our first grade teachers at MES, Mrs. Gugesberg, all right, Ms. Eck, Mrs. Jerome, Mrs. Espinoza, and Mrs. Jones. And then from Butterfield, here's a good one, Susanna Buisan. Man, I'm just going to quit now if I got those 2 right. Kim Thatcher, Darlene Jenkins, and Dally Hicks. And then our city staff who have just done a tremendous job in the pool. Josh Bowman's no longer in our department. He got promoted, so take that as a bonus. And then James Schultz, who is our pool coordinator, and Danny Gallegos, and then of course our lifeguards and water safety instructors who did just a fantastic job. And then last but not least, Global Water with Ron Fleming, John Corwin, and Beth Huerta, who provided the funding that really got us over the hump. And I thought this might be 2 or 3 years getting started, but we were able to do it the first year I was here. So very excited to do that. So we're gonna show a video. It's about 5 minutes, but you can see some of the parents and some of the outcomes and hear from some of the teachers about why this was a great program for us.
go.
Disagree. I'm not really sure if she's gonna be able to swim. I don't think my daughter would have survived if she fell into the
When we first started off, we learned that a lot of kids haven't had any swim lessons. So the curriculum we really worked on is water safety, learning to get comfortable in the water, how to deal with the situation, learning to pick up toys, learning to flip our bellies, learning how to do arm strokes, how to exit the water, how to jump in the water, and things like that.
Right now, they're jumping in the deep end, and just seeing the confidence in her, and her not being afraid of the water is amazing. So yeah, I definitely think that this has helped her a lot with her confidence.
I've noticed his change around water tremendously. Now he doesn't even hesitate, he just jumps in. And he knows he can come back up, he knows how to swim underwater, like his confidence level and his attitude around water is just tremendously gotten through the scale since it started. She's much more confident, she's going underwater now. She actually today jumped in the pool to one of the lifeguards, which I have to say they're amazing with the kids building that trust, especially for fearful kids.
The instructors did a great job. I love how they have different categories for the children. They don't have them all in one group. They have them separate with skill level, and that worked out great.
There were a few kids who were really excited. Those are probably the kids who had pools in their backyard or who had a lot of experiences swimming. There were other kids who said, I don't know how to swim, I can't, or I'm gonna bring my floaties. And we're like, well, we're gonna see how this program goes. I had to really talk to them about when we're trying new things, sometimes we're uncomfortable. And we're gonna go, we're gonna make sure that you're safe. That's my job, that's Coach K's job, that's the program's job to make sure you're gonna be safe. And we're gonna follow directions. We're gonna listen and we're gonna learn. And even when we're a little bit uncomfortable, we're gonna try. Once they got here and they saw how structured it was and how organized it was, they did feel safe. And they got in and we saw an amazing amount of confidence grow in them, even after the first session. The smiles were huge. They were really proud of themselves. And as teachers, we're going to use that for the whole year. Remember when things were hard and you were nervous and you pushed yourself through that and said, maybe I can't today, but tomorrow I will be. They were so excited about coming back for lesson 2. And then they came back to school saying, can we do this every day?
I think it's a good investment of time.
I definitely think this was a great use of school time.
This is a great opportunity for the kids, even during school.
You know, being a working parent, it's hard to make time to always get up with your children, teach them, and you're always worried about them because it's Arizona. There's pools everywhere. They're going to want to swim. Really great for them to have this school program to teach them.
Kids love this program because our swim day is on Thursday. Each teacher had their own swim day, so only one class at a time from our school gets to swim. And they always call Thursday the best day ever because they got to go swimming.
I have students from last year come in, how come they're getting to go and we never did? And I still don't know how to swim. Those are my second graders from last year saying, I want to go. And so I really want this program to spread and have all kids have this opportunity. It's just such an important part of living here.
What I would say to any of my fellow colleagues and educators, please talk to your principal, talk to your school about bringing this into your building, working with your PE teachers and giving this experience to the kids. It will translate into everything else you do academically.
Thank you, Global Water and Copper Sky. You have made my son an excellent swimmer, confidence good, and I can't wait for my unders to enjoy this opportunity as well.
Global Water, I want to thank you for letting this happen, for being a partnership with the school district and Copper Sky. It's helped my kid out tremendously, and I'm sure it's helped all the kids out tremendously. Thank you.
The Global Water has done an amazing job of creating a program that is really organized, and what they can do in 4 weeks has been kind of magical. And creating a confidence in these kids and giving them a skill that's going to go for their whole life.
All right, I'd like to introduce Janelle Hildick from Butterfield to say a few words from the school's perspective and about how the process went.
Hi there, Dr. Lotman, Governing Board. Just from our perspective, we thoroughly enjoyed it. Teachers, of course, were hesitant at first. I think some parents might have been. But once we got started, they, like you heard in the video, they were absolutely thrilled with the program. I heard nothing but positive comments for the entire thing. So it was wonderful. And our PE teachers helped, those first few days. And it was just an amazing experience. And again, I want to thank Global Water. I want to thank Dr. Lotman, Nathan, everyone at Copper Sky that helped with that. Because it means a lot to give the children this experience. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And then also I'd like to have John Corwin from Global Water come up and talk about why they got involved in the program and hopefully how they'll stay involved in the future.
No pressure.
Thanks, Nathan. Dr. Lotman, board members, thanks for having us tonight. John Corwin with Global Water. I also have Beth Huerta, who's our client services supervisor. And when we met with, Nathan on this program, I remember walking out of that meeting and looking at Beth, and immediately we were both like, we have to be part of this program. Obviously it's a good fit as the water company and being safe in the water, but more than that, just as a parent of 3 small children, I saw the value of what the program would bring. I think it's something that'll bring value to the school children for many years to come, and we're happy to be part of it. And it's a great example of a public-private partnership between the city and the school district, and so we're just grateful to be part of that. Like Nathan said, we've agreed to sponsor it again this year. We have the easy job. We just have to write a check. Nathan and his team, they really do the heavy lifting along with the school teachers and the staff. So we're happy to be a part, and we've actually increased the funding a little bit this year as well. So we hope this is a sustainable program that we can be a part of for many years to come. So thank you so much.
All right, well, if you have any questions, happy to answer that now. But again, thank you for your support and your leadership. And we do hope that this is something we can talk about when curriculum comes around of being kind of the fabric of Maricopa School District. And things like this, things like the Boys and Girls Club are the things that really start changing the narrative of how our school district and city and private sector work together to give our kids and our families a great experience. So we're happy for our part to be a part of it. And thank you, Dr. Lotman, for saying yes. Thank you, Janelle, Jennifer, and Paul, and Steve, and all the first grade teachers for saying yes when it's easy to say, hey, we're busy. So appreciate the equity that they gave us in time. So if you have any questions, happy to answer that, or otherwise, thank you.
I have a question. So this is just first grade. I heard that. How were they selected, and was it voluntary? Like the individual children?
So we offered it to every first grader.
Okay.
So the classes and the schools elected to participate. Parents had the option to not go.
Okay.
Obviously, there's some trepidation around
Right.
putting your kids in the water that they don't know how to swim, so I'm going to go send them in. So there's some of that, and that's what we're trying to help with the narrative and the video of creating. It's a safe place.
Yeah.
These are professionals by every standard. These are professional lifeguards and water safety instructors, and you're welcome to come as a parent too. We had several parents come during the day too. So we're hoping that participation goes up even more in the schools that we've already done it, but that we'll also have some security and a feeling of safety for the other parents. But our goal is every first grader every year gets this program.
That'd be great. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
I have a question. Sure. Do we know how many first graders participated?
198.
98.
And so that is a fantastic, by the way.
Yeah. Nine classrooms.
But
So-
how many first graders did we offer it to?
Well, everyone at Butterfield and MES for the pilot program. And then I've just sent out the kind of opening salvo to the principals at Saddleback, Pima Butte, and Santa Rosa for the spring session that we'll try to do as schedule permits. And then hopefully next year we'll add in Santa Cruz with Butterfield and MES for the fall, and then again the spring, and just keep it going. So.
Great.
Is there a possibility of increasing it to just to include the second and third grade as well?
I think if there's like a need for catch up maybe, but we're hoping that we're hoping we can take some of the additional funding that we've received from Global Water to have some scholarships and, at least eliminate the barrier of cost for the individual parents. But our hope is if we get everybody in first grade, it's a minimal number that slipped through, and then we can catch them, maybe in 5s and 10s rather than whole classrooms.
Okay. Thank you, Global Water, and the City of Maricopa. What an awesome opportunity this was for our students, and I couldn't be more proud to be part of this community and the effort that came about to make this happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I want to follow up on what Member Cotray said. Water safety is near and dear to my heart. I was a lifeguard all through college, and I know how important it is for these kids to not only learn how to swim, but just be comfortable around the water. And I got tears in my eyes watching the video, because you're not just teaching them how to swim, you're saving lives. You are saving kids' lives. So thank you so much for the funding that makes this possible. This is so important. And I'd like to give a round of applause to Global Water for that.
I don't have, sorry, are you done? All right. I don't have any questions, but, Nathan, we've talked, and I love your vision for this. You shared this with me not too long after you presented it to Dr. Lopman, and I'm really excited about where this is going. Thank you, Global Water, for sharing in that vision. And my family, we live at the pool. That's all there is to it. So I see the value. There's a lot of value that this brings. The confidence, not just in the water, but just in life, that, hey, I had this fear and I kicked its butt. I'm no longer afraid of this. So thank you. Hats off.
Thank you.
I have just one comment. I also thank you again to Global Water. Thank you to the City of Maricopa. Whenever we collaborate, the city and MUSD, it is big thinking. It's never just some, it's never just kinda, it's never just part, it's every kid. That is the way Nathan Olliott thinks about a lot of things. And so it's an extension of the board's vision of 100% access and equity. And you have to think big when you want 100% of anything. And when you want 100% of anything, you have to have partners. And that's why Global Water is vital to the success of this program and supporting the city and supporting the district. But it's just a sign of more great things to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an exciting time to be here in this town and seeing what's coming and the feeling and the narrative around what's happening in general. So thank you for allowing us to be a part of that.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 5B, compensatory time. Mr. Harmon.
Good evening, President Orr, Governing Board, Dr. Lobman. I'll be presenting some information on the compensatory time regulation that falls under Board Policy GDL, Support Staff Workload. This presentation falls under Goal 4, Community Pride through Excellent Customer Service, Sound Business Practices, Open and Effective Communication, and Safe and Attractive Facilities. Strategy B, Prioritize and Leverage District Resources to support the MUSD vision, mission, and strategic plan. And Strategy C, Demonstrate transparency and collaboration regarding financial resources and decision-making. Some specific areas of the strategic plan are above average employee salaries and increased resources to support strategic plan. I would first like to address why we're implementing a policy regulation for compensatory time. In fiscal year 19, we spent over $200,000 in overtime. As a result, we have taken a closer look to see how this can be addressed. Since 80 to 85% of our M&O budget goes to salaries and benefits, our budget relies heavily on our staffing standards and models. When overtime occurs, it goes against our staffing standards and impacts the budget. Our goal is to increase our salary schedule and to staff as well as the budget will allow, but overtime circumvents our staffing standards and is more a management issue than a staffing issue. We hope that with this new regulation and corresponding timekeeping module, the district will have the necessary tools to track and manage time worked to increase accountability and maintain district standards. Let me cover some quick basics. Overtime is 1.5 times regular rate of pay, but only for more than 40 hours worked in a week. It is either paid as cash or compensatory time. Extra time occurs when an employee works hours in excess of the employee's weekly work schedule, but the total hours are less than 40 in that work week. Compensatory time will accrue at regular time when extra time occurs and at time and a half when overtime occurs. An example of this: if John is contracted to work 30 hours in a week, but he works 32 hours, then he would accrue 2 hours of compensatory time. If Jane is contracted to work 40 hours a week, but she worked 42, then she would accrue 3 hours of compensatory time since the 2 hours were overtime and accrued at time and a half. The next several slides will cover some key points of the regulation. Reporting hours. It is the responsibility of each employee to accurately report hours in the district timekeeping system. Employees shall not work hours in excess of those scheduled unless authorized. It is understood that there are rare circumstances when it will not be possible to get prior authorization. However, when this occurs, the employee must record the time worked in the district's timekeeping system on the day of the occurrence and immediately notify the supervisor so that flex time may be utilized. Employees cannot volunteer to work overtime, and employees should not be intimidated into working overtime without recording it. Flex time allows employees to cover those rare circumstances that call for working beyond their normal scheduled hours and work less time on a later day in that same work week when the workload can handle that shortage. Utilizing flex time should be a priority. Supervisors will attempt to utilize flex time to adjust the employee's work schedule in order to avoid compensatory time or overtime accrual. A good example of flex time is when an admin assistant at a school works an extra hour when they have to stay after due to students waiting to be picked up. On the following Wednesday, they take advantage of the early release day when students leave early, and they flex their time by leaving at 3 instead of 4. Any hours worked in excess of the employee's weekly contracted hours will be compensated with compensatory time. An employee may not accrue more than 40 hours of compensatory time without the authorization of the superintendent. An employee must be permitted to use compensatory time on the date requested unless doing so would unduly disrupt the operations of the site or department. Due to budgetary implications, the district requires employees to use accrued compensatory time prior to using sick leave, general leave, or vacation leave. Compensatory time must be used in the same fiscal year it is accrued. In order to assure this is done and keep the balances low, all accrued compensatory time must be used by the end of each quarter. So by September 30th, December 31st, March 31st, and June 30th. If the compensatory time is not used at the end of each quarter, the balance is paid to the employee out of the department or site's budget. This will ensure that the balances stay small, overtime is closely watched and managed, flex time is utilized, and accountability is in place for extra time worked. We're pleased to announce that since this new philosophy has been communicated throughout the district this year, we've already seen a reduction in overtime of over $50,000 compared to this time last year. We believe this regulation and corresponding timekeeping module will show a continued decrease in overtime costs moving forward. That concludes my presentation, and I'm open for questions.
Yeah, I have a few. So you're gonna have to educate me. With the HR and the payroll that I have done in my job outside of here, I'm assuming this is all first for hourly employees. It does not include any certified or administrators, because those are on salaries, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So my knowledge is that with labor laws, employees must get paid for every hour worked. So how can we do comp time when, to my knowledge, that was against the laws?
They can be paid in cash or they can be paid in compensatory time. Both of those are allowed with labor law.
Even in Arizona?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because I was even audited once, told that they had to be paid, that they couldn't use comp time, that it had to be paid out for their hours worked.
Yeah, this is a common thing that school districts in Arizona do. It complies with Arizona law.
So by the end of each quarter, if they haven't taken their comp time, they will get a paycheck that
Correct.
includes all of their overtime pay
For
if
all
they had
hour-
overtime or the extra hours.
Yes, for all hours remaining in their comp time bank, they will be paid out at their normal rate of pay.
Okay.
I just wanted to quickly reiterate something that Patty had brought up, because it's important, not for the individuals here that attend these meetings, but for people at home. A lot of times when you're listening to a board meeting, you assume that most of the pay is in relation to teachers. I just want to let everyone at home know that there's basically no such thing as overtime for teachers. We are constantly on overtime. You are expected to work any number, 80 hours a week. That's not uncommon between grading and staying after school, and all of those things are all factored into what teachers do throughout the year. So I just want everyone to know that there isn't some special thing where all of a sudden MUSD teachers are getting overtime. So I just want to be clear on that. And I'm glad you cleared up that, because I had that question as well, concerning, is it federal? Is that a federal law in terms of being able to pay with compensatory time, or is that an Arizona law?
I mean, I believe it's both.
Okay.
Compensatory time is nationwide.
Okay. I thought that's a federal law as well. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Harmon, when did we start using this year?
We ran a couple of test groups just to
Okay.
kind of see how this would work, and to make sure that the module worked, but we're not going to roll this regulation out until July 1.
Oh,
So this
okay.
won't impact any budgets.
Okay.
We'll have further discussions in leadership and principals meetings to
Okay.
make sure that everyone understands how the system works. So July
Okay.
1.
Good to know. And other districts are already using this across the state?
This particular method of having any time extra roll right into the system, there's only a couple of districts that do this, that utilize this module within our Time Clock Plus system.
Okay.
So it's an electronic system. The concept is fairly universal.
Right.
But the fact that our system allows it is, and taking advantage of a feature, is a good thing for us. It's an efficiency that we create. It's less paper. We'll take some training.
Right.
But it's taking advantage of the feature that comes with our, what we call Time Clock Plus system.
Okay. So it's not going to be a whole lot more work for HR so who's going to track at the system?
The system will track
So it's up
it.
to the teacher to
We
put,
can
or
run
the
reports from the
staff to
system
put
to
We-
give the
information
principals
in?
and the
We have a
department
similar
heads.
thing where I work. What are we currently using for the software?
It's Time Clock Plus.
Okay.
It's probably the
We
most
have
popular.
Chronos at work, and it basically just monitors your clock in, clock out time. For teachers, we actually do have to clock in. We don't have to clock out,
used to
because,
do
as
that,
I said,
yeah.
there's no such thing as overtime for teachers. But it's a very easy system to use,
Okay.
and it probably takes a lot of weight off of, I would imagine, HR to a degree, to be able to have to monitor that time. And I think it's efficient use of our dollars.
Mr. Harmon, the classified employees, do they have to choose at the beginning of the year if they want to opt into doing the the comp time, or versus getting their pay right away? Is that something that they have to decide at the beginning of the year, or is this something that they can float in and float out depending on what their circumstances are?
This will become a regulation. This will be a standard that is.
So,
If you have a contract for 30 hours, that's what you're contracted to work. Anything above that will follow this regulation.
right, but if they didn't want to put their extra hours in comp time, they wanted to be paid that week for the extra hours that you know what I'm saying? So instead of putting it in that comp bank, they want it on their paycheck in that pay period.
So that would be a conversation that they would have with their department head or their principal to see if those site budgets or those department budgets could handle that overtime, as opposed to then taking that time off later, which isn't a budget hit. So, and then if there's, obviously if there's extenuating circumstances, we can approve to pay out the overtime and not follow this system, but this will be the standard.
Okay,
If that answers your
that's what I
question.
wanted to make
Okay.
sure, because there may be some employees that don't want to really buy into that comp, but if they're asked to work over their hours, they want to be paid for it.
Mhm.
Couple of things, when we started to monitor overtime a school level folks looking at when and how long people were working, and that helped, just that awareness in the amount of money we were spending in overtime. And then from the outset, we said that transportation and maintenance emergencies would be approved for overtime. You know, that's not something that we're going to get bogged down in the system, because kids got to get home and the air conditioning has to work. So we have common sense about this, but as Mr. Harmon said, this is about transparency and collaboration with all of our employees, so that we can have, our eyes on larger goals, as opposed to some of the management that was lost in this.
Mm-hmm.
And you said this will be rolled out at the beginning of next school year?
Correct.
So there'll be plenty of opportunity to speak with all the classified employees so that they fully understand how this is going to work?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And mostly the principals and the department leaders, they are the ones who are going to be also directly in the they're the daily person on the spot. So we'll make sure that they, know it inside and out, backwards and frontwards, and a couple languages. That'd be awesome.
All right.
Are
Thank
there
you.
any other questions
No.
for Mr. Harmon? Thank you so much for the information. We will now move on to our work study items. Mr. Beckett, Employee Recruitment and Retention.
Thank you, President Noor, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Loatman, and hopefully our presentation will come here shortly. I take recruitment and retention as one of my primary responsibilities here in the district. I know that our leadership team, principals and directors, take this very seriously. We understand and know that the best strategy for our kids is to have a qualified teacher in the classroom, and then in addition to that, to have quality staff that are supporting them. And that's leaders as well as paras, bus drivers, custodians. All these people are critical for our I think I have the presentation, hopefully put it up here.
If it's helpful, Mr. Beckett, we have it on our
We
board
do.
pack.
We
We
have
can
it.
pull it in
Yeah.
front of us.
Thank you, Mrs. Roden. As everything we've presented, obviously this is tied closely with our strategic plan. Goal number 3, that prioritizes our people over any of our programs in the district. It's critical for us to make sure that people feel valued, or the best reading curriculum, the best math curriculum don't have an effect unless we have people that feel valued in those roles. This is also part of our strategy for recruiting to maximize our return on our investment. And one of those areas fell into that third column there, the 90% employee retention. I had an opportunity to present at Arizona Business Association school officials conference about 3 summers ago. I had an opportunity to talk to people there about recruitment and retention. This was a quote that I found that I thought was very impactful. As a child of the 70s, I remember standing in line waiting for gasoline and also driving past stations that said, sorry, I'm out of gas. Talent is that new oil. And their supply for that oil and that talent is far outstripping what we have available to us. Teacher shortage, as a member Anderson talked about tonight. We are challenged to find opportunities to where we can have people in all of our roles. There are some statistics that I have on that next slide. Where are we now? Currently, we have 860 full-time and part-time employees. For last year, we had an 85% retention rate.
That's an improvement.
It's the positive way of saying that we lost 15% in attrition. So again, that's a good sign and a bad sign. I'd love to see that be in single digits, and again, that's a goal of mine to minimize that turnover rate as much as possible. Last year, we did hire 80 new certified staff members in a number of different areas. That did include some new positions as well. In addition to that, we now have 30 foreign national teachers that are working for us. Really appreciate especially the work of Jen Hopper, our certified coordinator. She does a terrific job. There's a lot of paperwork that's involved in bringing these foreign national candidates on board and getting them trained. And we've really seen some terrific results. If you want to have a testimonial, talk to Mr. Winter. He's just been very, very thrilled with the opportunity to be able to work with those professionals. And there we are. I think, go back one. There we go. And then finally, we have to acknowledge that the 20% pay raises that we've seen over the last 3 years have had a huge impact, I think, on keeping our people here. And it's something that, again, that we're continuing to work on. But it's not it. It's not the whole story. And as we move forward through here, these are some of our recruitment strategies that we have done in the past and will continue to do. We had our own job fair here at the district office at the end of January. We are planning a couple of in-state fairs. Arizona Department of Education actually holds 2. We're going to be at the Southern Fair at the beginning of March, and then at the end of February, the statewide fair is held in Glendale. And so we attend that. We usually have great success at both of those fairs, and we're looking forward to that. Also, Jen Hopper will be attending NAU's teacher fair. We typically go to any fair that's available from our universities. We take advantage of that. GCU has similar opportunities, and we've been participating in those in the past. Additionally, we've past few years, we've been offering high need and relocation stipends for staff coming in, one-time money. So somebody coming in with a degree in teaching in an area of special education, math, or science, they've received a $2,000 signing bonus. In addition to that, then we've also offered relocation stipends for out-of-state candidates, $2,000 for them, and then $1,000 for in-state candidates to get them here and get them settled. One of our strategies moving forward is to eliminate this one. We feel like we've thrown a good bit of money into our salary schedule. We feel like we're at a competitive place right now where that salary is competitive enough and strong enough that we can get people here in the door. On top of that, it establishes a base so that year number 2 comes and they're not losing that $4,000 they may have earned. It's already on their base and they're moving forward. Again, this is all kind of a strategy to pour as much money as we can into the M&O budget to help strengthen our ability to give quality salaries to everybody in the district. In addition, we offer as a finder's fee, $500 for any employee who refers a special education professional to us. That is paid out at the end of the contract period. So if they refer somebody this year for the 1920 school year, they'll get paid in June for that fee. Again, a gen ed teacher gets $200 if they refer somebody like that to us. We enjoy our partnerships with our universities here in the state, GCU, Rio Salado, ASU, U of A, NAU, all of them have been terrific partners with us. We get student teachers from there. We have opportunities to send our staff that want to go alternative pathways, which brings us to that next bullet point. We have had a number of teachers here in the district that have benefited from Arizona's kind of cutting edge strategy to have programs in place to pull people who have degrees in areas outside of education and get them into the workforce here in Arizona. I actually, when I first moved here to Arizona, I was part of one of the original transition to teaching grants that had been granted from the Department of Education, and I was able to monitor that and help to work that. In fact, a number of the candidates actually were from Maricopa that I worked with when I first started in Coolidge. And of course, our expanded foreign recruitment, we're excited about how effective that's been, and we're continuing to use that as an option. I hope this is a given. Our children obviously are what we're doing here, and they deserve our very, very best, not only our very best efforts, but our very, very best people. Another good statement that I pulled out from my past presentation, makes no sense to have strong recruitment practices and then fail to try to retain those people. It's just a revolving door. One of the most I guess, devastating statistics that I shared with that group a few years ago was 9 out of 10 out-of-state candidates coming to Arizona leave the state within 5 years. The question was asked then, why do we do out-of-state recruiting? Because we have to. We don't really have any other options. Our own teacher colleges do not produce enough candidates for us to get the job done, and as a result, we are a rock and a hard place in trying to find candidates in there. So, but these are some top reasons why people quit organizations, and these transcend not only education, but really every business model out there. What you'll find, I think, interesting, I think some of these things are givens, and it's good to see that I think as a district we're addressing many of these issues, but compensation typically is way down from the top of the list. And oftentimes that's what people immediately think keeps somebody here. But it's so much more about culture, about developing those relationships, of having opportunities, of feeling appreciated. Those are the things that keep people here. And again, it's a challenge to our departments, it's a challenge to our school sites, and it's something, again, that we're going to continue to work on. A couple of slides, a couple of different boxes here to show things that we're doing. I believe these are standard policies. You'll see in most districts. I do love our retention initiatives. These are the things that I typically share with our candidates on high school, or excuse me, on college campuses whenever I'm recruiting there. It's exciting to be able to show that we are investing in them. It's not just a paycheck. We want to develop you as a professional. On February 5th, we started a recruitment and retention committee. I've asked Jen Hopper and Sandra Alicon to facilitate that committee. I get the chance to sit back and listen to two of my professionals handle that, and they've done a terrific job. But they're facilitating this conversation. We're going to be continuing with meetings throughout the spring. We'll be coming back to you with a report, hopefully in May, with some ideas, strategies that we'd like to present moving forward. And again, we have a collaborative group, I think, put together not only of certified staff, but classified staff and administrative staff that are going to be represented on that committee. And we're just excited about the possibility of talking about these things and seeing what we can do not only to recruit, but keep people here. And with that, I'll take any questions you have at this point in time.
First, I just want to say, Mr. Beckett, thank you for being a magician, you and your staff. And I say that, and I'm only half joking. For anyone that listened to the state of the state's education by State Superintendent Hoffman, and explained exactly what the crisis picture looks like right now in Arizona for teachers, Maricopa is blessed to have you and the efforts of your staff. Most people don't realize that very, very few schools start with, I think we had maybe 1 or 2 positions at the beginning of this year that weren't filled with certified staff, and then the previous year there was none. That's incredibly rare. Okay, that's an incredibly rare thing in the state of Arizona. So I just want to share that first and say thank you. I wanted to ask a question about that 85% retention rate because that is awesome to see. Is that the highest that we've had in the past 5-10?
I can just tell you that it's gotten much better. At one point in time,
because I recall when it was as low as 75. It was 75.
Yes, right. In mid-20s is what we would sometimes see, and we were recruiting 100 people in the course of a spring and summer.
That is tremendous forward progress. Yeah. And just to share again, I know everyone in this room gets this, but a lot of people at home don't. Retention of staff is the single most important factor that you can point to in the success of schools. It is the only really one-to-one correlation that exists in researching data for successful schools that you could say staff's being retained, education is improving. It's as simple as that. It's a one-to-one correlation. So it's very, very exciting to see movement in that number. And I also would just like to take a second to say, Dr. Lopeman, I think that your presence here has a lot to do with that as well. The teachers here see that. And just wanted to say how much we appreciate it. And I think you have a lot to do with that number.
Ditto. It's exciting. We work with the team, not only in HR, but also in our leadership team. that take recruitment seriously. They want good people. They don't want to have to be worried about replacing people mid-year or a quick turnover. They're very, very conscious about that, and I really appreciate the efforts that I see on a regular basis from them.
Mr. Beckett, I'm just kind of curious, do you know what other districts around us, what their retention rate looks like?
I honestly, Mr. Owens, I focus so much on us to try to keep us on top of getting good hires here that honestly, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of, and I can't give you a source for this, but in terms of like CG Union, I'm thinking we're ahead in terms of, if you start looking towards Phoenix, I would say that now that number is looking comparable. But again, I don't take, do your own research on that, but from what I know.
Mr. Beckett?
Yes, Ms. Katria.
I know that salary isn't the biggest reason for people, but are we up there and competitive now with our districts to the north that we've lost so many teachers to?
Obviously, we're more competitive with Pinal County schools than we are with the lower tier of Maricopa County. I'm not aware of any other district that's doing as much this year for teachers as we are. 6% pay raise.
So we're closing that gap.
Every year, I believe we do that. And again, we're not only giving it to our current staff, but we're building it into our salary schedules as well, making those competitive. Our starting salary is going to be $43,416 next year. It's significantly, larger than it was, 3 years ago. So we're excited. That doesn't include the 301 payment that we have in there, had there in the salary schedule at one point in time as well. So yes, I'm excited. We'll see. Again, those salaries, average salaries, are going to be posted on our website as required by statute.
Well, thank you for all your efforts in closing that gap.
Thank you.
Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've seen a lot across the state, and I have to say we are way ahead of the ball game compared to districts in Maricopa County. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sanderson. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beckett. We will now, after that great news, we will now move on to item 6B, review and discussion of policy BEDBA, agenda preparation and dissemination. Dr. Lopeman.
Thank you, President Nord. This item is presented under my name, but it came up in conversation during our work study regarding the board superintendent protocols. And since that's obviously a collaborative effort in creating the agenda, we wanted to discuss that. And I know some of you may have had particular items that you wanted to surface so that we may discuss them. So I will, that's my introduction, and I'll defer to you, President Knorr.
Great, thank you, Dr. Lopeman. And I'm glad we're having this discussion about this, I think, probably one of the most important policies we have in terms of board operations. This policy has come up a couple of times while I've served on the board, and it's always been my belief that our policy on agenda setting needs to be inclusive, and that every member on this dais has the opportunity to, and the right, really, to have agenda items placed on board agendas, and that they cannot be stifled or told no. Obviously, with time being a consideration, so that it could be on a future agenda and not immediately, if that's possible, in all cases. But it's very important to me that every elected member of this board has an opportunity to place items that they think are important on the agenda if they feel that way. I know that some other districts have policies that allow members other than the president to suggest items, but I think it's very important that we make it very clear that it's a right. If you're an elected member of this board, you have a right to put something on the agenda.
I agree. I don't know.
Well, looking at this, and this basically came up when we were doing our operating protocols to make sure that this policy actually followed what we put in our protocols. And just a couple of things that, when it's stated in here that, that any board member can place an item on the agenda, notify within at least 5 working days before the meeting, but realistically, there could be an issue with it not being on in that 5 days, which if you don't put it on in that 5 days, you're now in violation of this policy. So either we need to make sure that that happens or we reword our policy. And then the agenda and supporting materials distributed to the board not less than 24 hours. Didn't we want to increase that? Because I don't want to
48.
get things 24 hours and have to read it and get to questions and still work full-time, so.
72. Didn't we
So
say
it was 3 days?
72?
I thought we did 72.
I thought we did 72
I know it wasn't,
days.
yeah, I know we talked about increasing that.
So we might want to bring this back and change that 24 hours to 72 hours.
Just for
and
notification time.
Just for notification. And then I agree with Board Member Coutre as far as the 5 days. I don't know that that's enough time to put something on an agenda because sometimes they're packed and you need to figure out when it's going to fit into what the topics are. So, I mean, I would like to see that
I think it just needs to be reworded.
maybe the prior meeting before, 2 weeks before. I think you should at least give 2 weeks time to formulate the agenda and figure out what, if it's a heavy agenda, I mean, if it's just,
But if we put a time limit on it, here's my thing. If we put a time limit on it, we may not be able to actually fit it in, or there may need to be research done that doesn't allow that to be put on an agenda within a set time limit. So I'd hate for that to stick us to a specific time limit, but I see your point. I don't want it to be ignored either.
Correct.
I don't want it to go months and months and
Correct.
months and never be put on the agenda.
correct.
Could
So-
you have, go ahead, do you have an idea?
No, go ahead.
Could we do it, because I understand the time limit, but I also don't want it to be,
A
Right.
long
Yeah,
time.
there's a happy medium.
yeah, because that could be used as an excuse to not
Put it on.
put it on. And I'm not worried about that with anybody here in this board,
But going
this
forward,
is a policy. And so could you do like, the board member proposing an item for consideration on placement agenda will notify the superintendent, and the item will be placed on an agenda within 2 months or within 3 months, or,
I don't even know if you want to put a time limit on that. I mean,
That's what I'm afraid of, is
yeah,
putting a
I
time limit on.
just think that we could word it where it's, we could probably get some examples from Chris Thomas and figure out a way to word it where it's, a particular item of business
But the other
within
thing-
reason of conducting business as a district. I mean, it could be something
oh,
as vague as
within
that.
reason, within a reasonable timeframe.
Correct.
But we should also make sure we change that, though, that not only just, we could notify the superintendent or the board president, because they are the two individuals that create
The agenda. I
the
think it should be
agenda.
both.
I think it should be both,
say
yeah.
superintendent and board.
And board president.
Right, because there's no
Because
reason
it-
why we can't send an email and,
Right.
and
Right, with
include
both
both of
people
you.
on there.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, because this one came up at the January 15th meeting, and we've had 2 meetings since then.
Right.
Right.
And both of them were kind of busy.
Right, and that was just kind of in our conversation about all the stuff that was building for these other agendas, just in terms of time and efficiency.
Right, and that was communicated, and I think Ben had sent,
Right, we
Mr. Owens
we
sent the email, he
discussed
said,
it, yeah.
would this agenda be okay? And, you were okay with that. So we went forward with that, but,
But I think there is wording we could probably get from
Yeah.
Chris Thomas that says within reason, within a reasonable amount of time, or within at least talk to the board member and say, here's when we can get it on.
Right.
So maybe we can work that, and take out an exact 5 days.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So definitely a change to the 24 to 70 to
Yes,
72.
Oh, that's for sure.
And then reworking of that 5 days to maybe possibly reasonable, or coming back with options
right.
for next time.
And then notify the superintendent and the president.
And the board president.
Yeah. Lisa, you
Or-
got that?
So is that
Okay.
tabled?
Maybe there's a way that it could be that,
Is that tabled?
that
It's just discussion.
it is planned on it, that within a short period of time, so we can make a time limit on it, that the board member is notified on what agenda it is planned to
you
be
go.
on.
Yes. Yeah.
So that board member knows that I requested this, but our agendas are really packed the next 2 meetings, so we're gonna put it on this agenda. But that board member is then notified within a certain time period that their item that they requested is going to be on.
In the future, in which future meeting?
Yeah.
I like that.
In what-
Well, and it can also be, you can work with that board member and figure out, is it something that is a hot topic in the district? Is it something that's come up? I just think that conversation needs to happen between the board member who's requesting it and the urgency of getting it on a specific schedule. That's all.
And we've experienced a range of
Yeah.
urgency and not so urgent. So,
Right.
we don't want to necessarily restrict ourselves
Correct.
to a defined time frame as Ms. Cotray is indicating. Just some less, more vague language, I guess, a little more ambiguity there would be. Okay. Well, we can look into that.
Open-ended.
Yeah. We can look into that, and then we would be proposing a policy change.
I mean, even if
Which
it was
is
something
good.
that just said, the superintendent will work with the requesting board member to put it on a future schedule. I mean, it could be something as vague as that.
Okay.
If I may, I want to just
Since you
clarify
are the
my
one.
statement earlier, that this is actually
No,
the second-
sorry, no, wait, no, I'm just kidding.
This is actually the second meeting since that January 15th meeting.
Right. Well, and this is going to come up again when we have our board meeting next week, I'm sure, when we're doing our board goals. So,
Okay, Lisa, you feel you've got enough feedback to try and craft something, and then we'll bring it back as an action item for first reading? Great, thank you. Okay, we will move on to item 6C, review and discussion of policy BIBA, board member conferences, conventions, and workshops. And it says Dr. Lutman, but I believe Mr. Owens had requested this.
Yeah, so this, this came out of our January 15th
special meeting.
special meeting, you know, kind of looking at our protocols, excuse me. And so, you know, the policy basically says that we're going to periodically decide which meeting or which trainings and meetings appear to be the most promising. And I've been here for a year, you know, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, you know, that kind of thing. But this is something that I don't think that we've really done a great job on. And then the other component here is the last bullet point, that I don't know that as a board we're doing a really great job of sharing and disseminating information that we receive at some of these trainings, you know, because Josh and I in particular, you know, our jobs are limiting to what we can and can't attend. So I don't know how we can share some of that information, but if somehow we could work on that a little bit somehow to try to share some of that, that would be helpful.
Dr. Lobman has my presentations that she will send out, but the other thing is all workshops and everything are on the Arizona School Board Association website. So if there's a conference and I think I say that every time we have a meeting.
Yeah, but I think
all the
Ben's
webinars are there.
Ben's point is the fact that he's saying that we have some kind of consensus in terms of what we're going to attend as a board. Unless I misunderstood
Well,
that.
two things. That was one.
Yeah.
The other one was,
Which I
if
agree.
we go.
I agree.
Yeah,
But I
absolutely.
think it's almost kind of an understood, not for me because that's going to be it for me, but there is an understanding, I think, for the summer leadership and for the annual conference for ASBA, and those are the ones that we generally attend.
and the new board member training.
And the new board member
Yeah.
training.
And we have
that
highlighted
this-
those.
Right. So I think year in, year out, those are the two that we pretty regularly attend. and maybe make that a part of policy.
Yeah, and I do want to follow up on about it available on the ASBA website. The stuff that's presented at workshops and conferences, you can only access if you're at the workshop and conference. That's why they charge registration.
But
So like
afterwards,
Ben was
it's
saying,
on the website.
Afterwards, it's on the
After
website?
the conference,
Yeah.
it's on the website. There'll be webinars.
There'll be webinars?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say that, you know, some of the stuff that we learn after, I mean, Mrs. Anderson and I have attended enough of these that, you know, some of the best information we get is just networking with other districts, because, you know, they might have similar challenges that we're having, and they have different ways that they've overcome those. And so sometimes it's better just to tweak the wheel instead of recreating it, and we can bring it back to our district. But some of those conversations happen, so there's not like reference material to pass on to other board members. It's just kind of having the conversations. Mr. Judd will know he's had conversations with different board members at the summer leadership conference, and he's had different takeaways depending on who he spoke to regarding that. So some of these things that are professional development growth for the board members, it's just being there and being present and being part of those opportunities that we're given. And obviously working full-time, being a parent, being an active parent, an active member of the community, it's not always easy to attend them. It's just, it depends on how you want to grow as a board member. I mean, basically what it comes down to, and how you prioritize it.
But I agree with you, Ben. I do think that maybe when we do our board goals next week, that we could maybe list out which ones are priorities, which ones would be most beneficial for a returning board member, or which ones are going to be beneficial for a new board member. And I think that I agree we should probably get a little bit more clarity, because they do webinars all the time. So I agree. I think we do need to kind of list out specifically which ones are worth going to.
In
get
keeping,
get the bang for our buck.
in keeping with what
And
Ben said,
how
in
many
terms,
times?
yeah, in terms of having the less flexible schedule, I see those two conferences as the ones, because I always had that time, and I for the first 3 years I attended the summer conference, and then for the last two, the fall. But I always had to take time from work in order to be able to do that, which made it difficult. But the summer was always a pretty short.
Yeah. You know, the other piece to that is sometimes we might say, and don't shoot the messenger, please. Sometimes we might say, yeah, you got to go to the annual conference in December. But in looking at the sessions, maybe that's not the best one to go to. So I think it's depending on what you want to learn as a board member, and looking at, I need to use the right word here, looking at the content and where you are, and then saying, okay, you know what, I want to learn about the rules governing from the dais. And so there would be maybe just a one-day workshop that might take that place versus a 3-day annual conference. So I think that we could do a better job at identifying valuable content as to where you are as a board member, or I am, or whatever. Because there's some things I'm like, I'm not going to go to that again. I mean, even though I go to all of it now,
Yep.
because ASBA tells me to, but sometimes it's like, not so much.
Yep.
So I get it. Yeah.
I think the most valuable, probably the most valuable, at least what I thought for both the summer and the annual, was your ability to be able to discuss with other board members.
Mm-hmm.
That is always the biggest takeaway. And that's why I said those two, because they are the most well-attended. You're going to run into the most amount of board members at both of those conferences.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
those are usually our go-tos.
Tori,
Yes.
ASBA, when they do those webinars, do they email every board member, or do they just email?
It should be going to every board member. It definitely goes to Dr. Lopeman, and sometimes she can send it out. We are working on that as an association, because some board members haven't updated their email address, and so when we send it out, it may not get to them. So that's something that we're working on our end. It's a constant education piece
Okay.
to have the correct emails.
Okay.
But every board member does get emailed the webinar link after the conference.
Well, even like webinars that are coming up, I get them, but I didn't know if it was just because I attended so many of these things. But like the ones that you don't have to like attend in person,
Right.
Just the ones that they do, like they've been doing advocacy ones, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm asking. Are emails sent to
get 'em?
everybody?
Yeah.
You get them from ASBA that
Yeah,
says, hey,
for-
this webinar is
Yeah,
coming
for-
up?
There
Okay.
was one recently on rural summit
Yes.
or whatever
Okay.
it was.
Yes.
So you do get them. Okay.
Okay.
I didn't know if it went to. I didn't know if it went to every board member or just those that have attended.
It goes to every board
Okay.
member. And just so you know, the conferences we do are cost neutral. We don't make money on our conferences because our purpose is to train board members. So I just want to put that out there. But good
Great.
comments.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I think this is a good opportunity to talk about this, and I think we can have some follow-up conversations with our board goals. It fits
Mhm.
really well
Next
into
week,
next
yeah.
week's special meeting.
If
And-
you get your agenda item in on time.
Yes, and then we've got to have it 72 hours before the meeting.
No, it's not in policy yet.
It's not in policy.
It's 24 hours, man.
But Ben, I'm happy to, I mean, any board member, I'm
It was,
happy
it
to
was the
look at
way it was said. That was
Oh,
good.
I know.
That was good timing.
I'm happy to look at it and say, yeah, this is a great presenter, or maybe you could skip that one and go to that.
Right.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
Gotcha.
Good
All right,
point.
Thank you.
Great. Well, if we are done discussing item 6C, we'll move on to item 7, the consent agenda minus 7I. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 7I.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Lisa?
Patty Cotray.
Aye.
Joshua Judd.
Aye.
Tori Anderson.
Aye.
Ben Owens.
Aye.
Anne Marie Noor.
Aye. By your vote of 5-0, you have approved the consent agenda without 7I. We will now move on to our action items and begin with 7I, which is approve the multi-term contract resolution and addendum to the master installment purchase agreement. Mr. Harmon. Mr. Owens, we'll let you take over.
All right. The only reason I pulled this is because if you look at the resolution of the governing board authorizing multi-term contract, the second attachment on there, we, according to this, are Maricopa Unified School District number 4.
That's a typo.
So I think we need to have that changed.
Yeah.
That's the only reason that I pulled it.
And we can
Thank you.
verbally say make that change and we can still approve it. Correct? Yeah.
Well, it's an action item now, so you can say, I can approve it
Right.
With the
With
with
change.
that change. So that would
Gotcha.
be your motion.
Gotcha. All right, I make a motion that we approve item 7I with the correction of, to reference Maricopa Unified School District number 20, also known as the district.
I'll second.
Great. I have a motion and a second. Lisa?
Patty Cotray.
Aye.
Joshua Judd.
Aye.
Tori Anderson.
Aye.
Ben Owens.
Aye.
Anne Marie Noor.
Aye. By your vote of 5-0, you have approved 7I with the noted change, and thank you, Mr. Owens, for being so diligent in your reading. We will now move on to item 8A, personnel schedule. Mr. Beckett.
Thank you, President Noor, members of the governing board, Dr. Lohman. A long personnel schedule for you tonight to look at it. A couple highlights. We are including a list of all our teachers that we're recommending for renewal for contracts. Once again, by the way, I want to thank you for approving the consent agenda items that allows us to issue contracts with new salaries and those kind of things. So I appreciate that effort. I'll take any questions that you have at this point in time from the schedule.
Mr. Beckett, when is the target to send out those now that we've approved the contracts?
Thank you, Member Cotray. Our hope is to have them out by the end of February
Great.
for everybody.
And when are you asking them to be returned?
There's some statutory language that goes with each one of those documents. I believe it's 10 working days
Okay.
for teachers, 5 for classified staff.
You have a long list of people leaving.
This is the time of year when our principals are having those conversations of people who are either thinking about retiring or they've made the decision they're leaving the district here. And so yeah, this is a little longer list than what we typically see on our personnel schedules in February. But again, I appreciate the earlier we know what we're looking for, the better job we have at recruiting. So I appreciate those conversations.
Well, if there's no other discussion, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the HR schedule.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second. Lisa?
Patty Craig.
Aye.
Joshua Judd.
Aye.
Tori Anderson.
Aye.
Ben Owens.
Aye.
Anne Marie Noor.
Aye. By your vote of 5-0, we've approved the personnel schedule.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for getting it done so early with the contracts. We'll now move on to item 8B, discussion and possible approval of first reading of updated policy KHC, distribution posting of promotional materials. Dr. Lipman.
Thank you for reviewing this. There's a number of changes there, but in essence, what it does is bring the policy up to date with our with the use of Peach Jar as an electronic distribution system, and it provides greater clarity and it just sort of updates the policy to match our practices.
So Dr. Lotman, who clarifies, because that whole top part of it's been taken out, and it just says the governing board authorizes the district and its schools to publish promotional materials of outside organizations. Who screens that?
We do.
If you look right underneath it, it's just restated.
Yeah.
Right. But
It defines it.
does it go through you? Who does this?
My designee. I don't
Okay.
screen everything. Most of it comes through the principals, through Michelle Terry. And Michelle Terry is the one who knows this policy inside and out. I understand the concepts and expectations, but she has worked with legal and with, has received copies of other districts. So a lot of the stuff that you'll notice that is changed, that is deleted, is captured, maybe captured under another policy that may come up for review later. This is mostly about, kind of like nonprofit outside organizations like the City of Maricopa or the Girl Scouts or the Cub Scouts. This is mostly what this is about, using our Peach Jar system to promote programs, publish materials, and then of course everything that happens internally goes through that system as well. And that doesn't require the same, it's school
Scrutiny,
stuff. It's about
yeah.
the carnival, it's about the PTO fundraiser, that kind of stuff that goes through Peach Jar.
Well, if there's no other discussion, I make a motion we approve policy KHC.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Lisa?
Patty Craig.
Aye.
Joshua Judd.
Aye.
Tori Anderson.
Aye.
Ben Owens.
Aye.
Anne Marie Noor.
Aye. By your vote of 5-0, you have approved the first reading of policy KHC. Can I get a motion for the 2 executive sessions?
I don't know. No, I'm
Or
just
we can
kidding.
just sit here.
I'd like to motion to approve to go into executive session pursuant of 38-431A3 for E session, that is C, and then D is approved to adjourn to executive session to vote on ARS 15A43.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session. Lisa?
Patty Craig.
Aye.
Joshua Judd.
Aye.
Tori Anderson.
Aye.
Ben Owens.
Aye.
Anne Marie Noor.
Aye. By your vote of 5-0, it is 8:09 p.m. We are adjourned to executive session.